In a small California town resting on the edge of the desert, quiet, dusty, and known mostly for correctional facilities and windswept ridges, lived a woman named Diana Mackenzie. For 14 uninterrupted years, she stayed in the same modest home located along an isolated street just outside Tehachapi. The house had been her father's for decades, and when he passed away early in the year, the property had finally fallen into her name through inheritance. She lived a simple life inside those aging walls, sharing the space with her 2 sons, who were both in their late teens. For years, Diana also maintained a quiet friendship with a woman named Laura O'Brien, a forceful, determined, and somewhat controlling personality who ran a small cleaning business connected to a local charter school. Although Laura appeared friendly on the surface, people often remarked that her relationships rarely lasted. She tended to dominate conversations, issue commands rather than requests, and she expected loyalty from those around her. For a time, Diana considered her a close friend. They had shared dinners, looked after one another's children, and even taken small local trips together. But over the years, subtle tensions weakened the bond until, eventually, the relationship collapsed under the weight of unspoken disagreements. During the period when they were still on good terms, Laura often relied on Diana for help with cleaning contracts. Whenever Laura needed to leave town, whether for business, family matters, or short vacations, she entrusted Diana with cleaning the charter school building after school hours. The job was not glamorous, but Diana was grateful for the extra income. Laura paid her $12 an hour, always in cash, and over the months that followed, Diana ended up cleaning for her roughly a dozen times. To make the cleaning process easier, Laura kept all of her supplies: chemicals, rags, vacuums, and various tools in the back of her own PT Cruiser, a faded blue car that had seen better days. Rather than move all the equipment into her own vehicle each time, Diana would simply drive Laura's vehicle to the job site. Laura herself suggested this arrangement, insisting it saved everyone time and effort. There was no formal contract, just a verbal understanding between 2 women who, at the time, believed they trusted each other. It was during one of Laura's out-of-town trips that the central conflict of their story unfolded. In mid-September of 2013, Laura and her husband left for a short getaway. Before leaving, Laura again arranged for Diana to cover the cleaning work at both the charter school and a small church building that also employed Laura for janitorial service. As usual, she reminded Diana of the car routine. Diana could leave her own vehicle parked near Laura's home and use the PT Cruiser to perform the necessary tasks. The keys, as always, were left in the car. Diana had done this before without incident. Sometimes she had used the car only once a week, sometimes twice. She remembered at least several occasions when she had driven it with full permission. Even Laura, when later questioned, admitted Diana had used it at least one prior time, though she was careful to minimize the frequency. Regardless of those small discrepancies, the fact remained that Diana had not taken the car without permission. She had used it exactly the way Laura instructed. On this particular occasion, Diana brought her older teenage son with her, because he had accompanied her to town earlier that day. As they were unfamiliar with one of the back roads near the desert ridge, she used a GPS navigation system to help guide her from one location to another. Late that afternoon, while driving along a neglected rural road with uneven pavement and scattered rocks, Diana felt the car jolt violently. She wasn't going fast, only fast enough to keep pace with the flow of traffic, but the unexpected impact still made her grip the steering wheel tightly. Something beneath the car scraped, hissed, and began to leak. She immediately pulled over. Bending down to look under the vehicle, she saw a line of fluid dripping. It wasn't oil. She recognized that smell well enough. Instead, the fluid was thin, watery, and slightly tinted, which made her fear it might be radiator coolant. She hadn't collided with another vehicle, and she hadn't run into a sign or curb. But the road was scattered with harsh, jagged edges, and she suspected she had struck either a deep pothole or an unseen rock. Her son looked worried. "Mom, we can still push it," he said. "There's a truck stop about half a mile back." She didn't want to leave Laura's vehicle stranded, so the 2 of them carefully rolled the car backward along the flattest path until they reached a roadside service station next to the truck stop. The mechanic on duty examined the radiator, finding a small puncture. He explained he could patch it temporarily for a modest price. The repair cost $25, and Diana paid it out of her own pocket. The mechanic warned her that while the patch was holding, the radiator would eventually need a more formal replacement. But for the moment, the vehicle could be driven home safely. Diana drove the PT Cruiser home slowly, monitoring the engine temperature. To her relief, the car did not overheat. It ran smoothly enough to make the trip without further trouble. She returned the car to Laura's driveway and went about her business with the belief that she had done everything a responsible person could do under the circumstances. When Laura returned from her trip, Diana attempted to explain what happened. The jolt on the road, the punctured radiator, the temporary repair, and the need for future assessment. Laura listened, but only partially. Her expression hardened, and she accused Diana of being negligent. Over the following weeks, tension grew. Laura claimed the damage was more extensive than Diana had described, insisting that the entire radiator, hoses, and even parts of the engine had suffered failure. Diana, confused and trying to remain calm, maintained that the vehicle had been drivable after the initial incident and that Laura herself had continued using the car afterward, which meant any additional deterioration could not be pinned entirely on the earlier event. Months passed without resolution. Their friendship collapsed. They no longer spoke. Diana continued living at her longtime address with her sons, while Laura filled her days with new business ventures, including a restaurant she later opened in 2014. More than a full year after the incident, Laura unexpectedly filed a civil case against Diana. She accused her former friend of taking the car without authorization, damaging it in a careless manner, and then abandoning responsibility. In Laura's written complaint, she asserted that Diana had disappeared when she attempted to serve her court papers, making the process difficult. This claim baffled Diana. She had lived in the same house for 14 years. She had never moved. She hadn't changed numbers or left town. Anyone who wanted to locate her could have found her almost instantly. When the matter finally reached the courtroom, the judge, a sharp, perceptive woman known for her no-nonsense tone, immediately questioned the inconsistencies. She asked Diana where she lived, and Diana answered truthfully. The same Tehachapi house she had lived in for over a decade, now legally hers following her father's passing. She asked Laura why she had waited so long to file the case. Laura vaguely claimed that she couldn't find Diana because she disappeared, but the judge pointed out that Diana never left her residence, making the accusation implausible. The judge did not appreciate misleading statements. Her stern tone made it clear she expected honesty and clarity from both parties. The judge asked about the cleaning arrangement, the payment method, the frequency of work, and the practice of using Laura's car for transporting supplies. Diana gave consistent, straightforward answers. She was paid in cash, usually $12 an hour, and she had completed between 10 and 15 assignments. The judge turned to Laura. She asked how many employees she had during that time. Laura hesitated, unable to list anyone besides Diana, contradicting her earlier implication that multiple employees used her car. She admitted that Diana had, at least on one occasion, driven the PT Cruiser prior to the September trip. The judge dismissed the attempt to downplay this fact. Whether it was one time, several times, or many times, it was clear that Diana had not taken the vehicle unlawfully. The question then became whether Diana was responsible for all the resulting car damage. Diana recounted the events: the GPS guidance, the damaged radiator, the temporary patch, and the smooth drive afterward. She presented the service receipt as evidence, demonstrating she had paid for the patch herself rather than leaving the vehicle unfixed. The judge inspected the receipt thoughtfully. It became clear that Diana had acted with reasonable responsibility. She didn't abandon the car. She attempted a repair. She returned it. She informed the owner. But Laura's expectations were different. She believed Diana should have paid for full, professional repairs immediately, even though she herself drove the vehicle later and allowed additional deterioration to occur. As the discussion unfolded, the court began to see that the issue wasn't just about a damaged radiator. It was about a friendship that had slowly decayed, a misunderstanding amplified by anger, and a desire by one woman to hold the other accountable for more than just the mechanical issues. The judge noticed that Laura frequently responded defensively, offering vague statements or changing details to support her claims. Diana, although anxious, remained consistent and factual. The judge questioned why, if damage had occurred in mid-September, Laura continued driving the same car without immediately seeking repairs. Mechanical damage often worsens with time when left unaddressed. If Laura truly believed the vehicle was severely harmed at the moment Diana returned it, why didn't she seek help immediately? Why wait months? Only to later insist the deterioration was Diana's fault. There were no clear answers. The judge's tone grew sharper as she identified contradictions. She repeated that honesty was crucial. Any statement not lining up with verifiable facts weakened credibility. Diana, for her part, remained calm but emotional. She expressed disappointment, not just in being taken to court, but in being accused of vanishing, of being deceptive, when she had simply carried on with her life in the same quiet home she always lived in. Throughout the hearing, the judge compared the two personalities. Diana, steady and direct. Laura, assertive but inconsistent. These differences painted a clearer picture of what likely happened. Considering all evidence, the judge leaned toward viewing the radiator puncture as an unfortunate accident rather than a reckless act. The road conditions supported the likelihood of hitting a pothole or rock, particularly on unstable rural roads. Diana had paid for an immediate fix. The temporary patch cost was minimal, but the judge recognized that a deeper mechanical issue didn't always appear immediately. Radiators weakened by impact often fail gradually, sometimes days or weeks later. What played a far larger role in any additional damage was Laura's decision to continue driving the PT Cruiser. When the hearing reached its final stage, both women sat in silence. Years of friendship had unraveled into resentment, accusations, and a lawsuit that might have been avoided if communication had been clearer from the beginning. Diana's quiet life in Tehachapi continued after the case, unchanged by the drama except for the painful awareness that not every friendship is built to last. Laura continued her entrepreneurial endeavors, including the restaurant she had opened, but she carried with her the realization that claiming someone disappeared would never erase inconsistencies in her story. And the judge, firm, analytical, and effortlessly perceptive, left both women with a reminder that truth is not measured by emotion, but by the consistency of one's actions and the facts that support them.